Welcome to the show, Roula Selinas. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelson. It's an honor to be here, to finally get to be here today.
Yeah. So, I mean, our listeners don't understand what we had to go through to make this happen with the different time zones and the different dates. But like we were talking about, where there's a will, there's a way. And if people want to understand that, this is a show that they need to be on. So the one thing I like to do is at the start of the show, I just like to ask, do you have one piece of advice or a quote or something that will have our listeners pulling out their pen to write down a nice quote or a nice philosophy or concept that you can lay on us, right in the beginning of the show?
Well, one of my favorite quotes that I always love to live by is by Jim Rohn, and that is keep a security guard at the door of your mind, because it's really important what we say to ourselves, because what we say to ourselves is, how we think and feel, and that determines our outcome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Really be aware of what you say to yourself. And
I think there's so many people out there, and this is one of the things that I always talk about, is we have to be our own biggest heroes. We have to be our own biggest fans, because if we don't believe in ourselves, then it's going to be hard, if not impossible, no matter how much other people believe in us. We're bad self-talk and always talking down to ourselves. So love that.
Exactly.
Well, you've got quite the unique story, Roula. So can you please get into that, kind of give us the 10,000 square foot version of it, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. Well, I had a pretty good life up until I was 40. And then I was diagnosed in 2007 with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. And my life turned upside down. So it was a shock to me and a shock to everyone around me, because I was really into fitness and health and looking after myself. So I had to start treatment immediately, and I also needed to have a bone marrow transplant, which is I needed a donor for like a stem cell transplant. So I started one of the most intensive chemotherapies available, and that was for 8 months. That was pretty hard, but so it was hard, and it was very challenging. I was up in Brisbane, so I was away from my family for most, all of that time. My mum stayed with me up in Brisbane, and my husband and my kids were on the Gold Coast, because that's where we lived. And my husband at the time had started a new business. So because, the kids were in school and his business was there, it was about an hour away from Brisbane. And my dad stayed with him. So they moved up from Sydney to be with us. So a very challenging time, because it was like a crisis on all levels. So it was a health crisis I was going through, but it was also, being away from them too, and also a financial crisis, because it was only a new business, as we had moved up from Sydney. So there wasn't really much money coming in as well, and a lot of uncertainty as to what is going to happen, Right. So yeah, a lot of uncertainty. You just don't know. So it completely, you have no control over something like that. So you really need to learn to trust, and that was a really big process for me.
Well, talk a little bit about that, because you're being hit on a lot of different fronts here. I mean, it would be one thing to be hit with cancer and be receiving treatment in the same town, after you're financially set, but there's so many different things that are hitting you all at once. What type of mindset do you have at this time of your life?
Oh, look, like I said, it was very challenging. Look, in the beginning, I was in shock because I thought maybe I did have a virus, because I was sort of like feeling I had lost a lot of weight. But I never expected in a million years it would be, cancer or leukemia. And I was in shock, and I just, you get the feelings of, why did this happen? How did this happen? Like, I can't believe this has happened to me. But you really can't stay stuck there, because I just had to try somehow to focus on, this is what I have to do right now, and I've got to try and find a way to get through it.
Yeah. And you had talked, we had talked before, and you were going through this with a girlfriend, right? Who also had cancer, correct? Was that right?
Well, I wasn't going through with her at the time, but my friends have died from cancer. Like, a couple of my friends have died from cancer. And no, so I was going through it, just myself. Mum was with me up in Brisbane.
Okay.
Which was a good support for me. But I held a lot of things inside, to be honest, I didn't let myself cry. I did not let myself cry, because I just knew I could not feel sorry for myself. I had to get through this somehow and think of the future and how things are going to be. I didn't want to think of what, you got to think. I was trying to think of, how I wanted things to be in the future when I get through this. And that's, after the initial shock, I'm talking about, not in,
right.
in the immediate. Yeah. And because I didn't say a lot of things to my mum, because she was very emotional, and she was going through her own things. And so, yeah, I tried to be strong for her, and she tried to be strong for me. And I just somehow just thought, look, I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. This is what's happened, and I've got to somehow find a way to get through this. And it was a process to learn to trust in the universe, because I'd lost so much control of everything. Like, nothing was certain anymore.
Right.
And I just had to learn to believe and trust that things are going to be okay. And my faith in God and in the universe just strengthened and helped me get through that.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of things that we talk about on this podcast are, you're not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choices. Did you ever fall into that victim mindset? Was it ever, woe me and I don't deserve this? Was any of that ever going through your mind?
Yes, I did. I did initially, and a few times going through it, because I had a lot of complications. This wasn't an easy journey. So I did have 8 months of chemo, but that was just the beginning. And as to what I went through, that was a piece of cake. The chemo was hard, but then I had the bone marrow transplant, which was on a completely different level. Like, that was so full on, because they wipe everything out, your whole immune history, and you're basically so weak. And I'd lost a lot of weight. And the fact that my donor wasn't a good match, he was from Germany, set me up for a lot of complications. So it was a really, really tough journey, because I took 10 steps forward only to get something happen, a virus, infection, so many things happened. I've had 4 eye operations. I almost went blind. My left kidney was damaged. Countless viruses and infections. I had pneumonia, and I almost died in 2009. So it was a series of events. I'd get better, something would happen. Because my donor wasn't a good match as well, I ended up, you get graft versus host, which is a common thing with it. It's your cells know that the donor cells are foreign, and they start attacking it. So they give you very high doses of prednisone, cortisone, which is steroids. So I got diabetes from that, steroid-induced diabetes. So my body and my mind went through, it was very, very difficult. I'm not going to lie. And emotionally, it was very difficult. And yes, sometimes I would fall into that thing. And then, yeah. But you can't stay there. You can't stay there.
Right. So how did you get out of that? I mean, I'm sure when you go through things like this, I mean, it sometimes you just want to throw up your hands and give up. I mean, how do you battle back from being that low?
Yeah, that's a good question. In 2009, when I got pneumonia, when I almost died, I was really, really sick. I'd lost so much weight from the virus that I had, which was, and very, because my immune system was so low. And I had had enough, to be honest. I had had enough. And I did want to give up. But somehow, during that time, in the moment when I surrendered, because you just letting it go out to the universe, that's when I found my strength, because I learned to trust, like on a really deep level. And I ended up trusting, and I ended up fighting. I want to fight again. I'm not going to give up. And I was back on track, but I had to reach that really low place, because I'm a very independent person, and I like to do things myself. And I just found it very, very difficult. So, and I almost died. I mean, I had my last rites read to me during that time, because I had a mini stroke during that time as well. I got that sick. I was, had the priest come in, but I ended up I found my strength again, and I ended up, I want to fight, and I want to be able to get through this again. But I had to reach that really, really low place after so many times.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
Yeah. There's so many people who are like that, like they've hit rock bottom, and that makes a great foundation to a new beginning. Did you find that out in your life? I mean, when you hit that rock bottom, did that propel you into something new?
Yes, definitely. Yes. You find a new inner strength to, I mean, I was so weak, I could barely walk up the stairs. During that time, because I'd lost so much weight and muscle mass, because I was laying in bed for so many years. Well, not so many years. It was like in and out of hospital, but So, I did find that inner strength again, and I was suffering from chronic fatigue as well. And that took a long time for me to get better. But slowly, when I got home, I slowly started to walk again, and build up my strength.
So one of our philosophies at I Got Smarter is that we're grateful in all things. Have you reached that point? Like, can you look back on all these trials and these hurdles that you had to overcome, and do you see some sense of gratitude in there now?
Definitely, yes. I did 100%. After the first cancer, it took me, after things settled down a bit, and I was so grateful. I mean, not many people got through it, and I was one of the ones that got through it. But then like I said, it took me a long time to get my fitness and strength back. It took me a good 6 to 8 years with the chronic fatigue to get on top of it. And I was in a really good position. I felt fit, strong, and healthy again. But 10 years after the transplant, and I was in a really good place. I felt fantastic. I'd released a book as well after my first cancer, and I was, really grateful. Then I was diagnosed with the secondary cancer, and this is 10 years later. So that was another devastating shock. I did not see that coming, and that turned my world and everything upside down again. And it tested me again, tested my spirit and just everything again, everything I believed in, because I thought, how can this happen to me again? Well, after everything I've been through.
Yeah. Was it any different the second time? Did the first time prepare you to go through the second time? Were you stronger? Did you have a different outlook on it? Or was it more devastating because you had already made it out of there once?
It was more devastating because I had already made it out of there with such a battle to get through to get to that good place again. And I was happy. I was with a partner, and I felt fit and healthy. And it was caused by the radiation from the first treatment. Yeah. And, I really had to go through all that, that's probably hit me harder. That hit me harder than the first one, to be honest.
So how did you make it through that? I mean, again, we go through these struggles and these hurdles, and you made it through, beating cancer, and then 10 years later you get struck with it again. Like, how do you get your mind wrapped around that and continue to fight?
Well, it was a process. It took me a while. I couldn't talk to anyone for a good month or two. Only just my family, because I was in shock and I was so angry. I was so angry this time. I wasn't angry the first time. It was different. This time I thought, look, I could see how people lose faith in God or whatever, because I really thought, how can this happen to me again? It was so hard to get to where I was, and I felt fantastic, and to have that happen again. And my partner at the time couldn't, I don't think he could handle it as well. So took me a while, but eventually I got through it again. And, because I just thought, how can this happen to me again? But this is what's happened to me. I thought, I've just got to, I'm one of the lucky few that have made it, actually. Three of my girlfriends have passed away, and I've been through all this and I'm still here. So I'm grateful. And as much as it's hard as it's been, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and I've got a lot of golden, gifts and things that I can hopefully share with others, which is what I want to do.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So as you said here today, how have these experiences changed your outlook on life and the way that you look at life, and maybe even each day?
Well, I'm very grateful. Like I said, I try to be more in the moment, and I'm happier with the simple things in life. I'm not as materialistic. Well, no, I wasn't really materialistic, but I want to get a bigger house, or I was living in my dream house and I ended up getting cancer, and at the end of the day, I know what's important and what makes me happy, and I think your health is the priority. You can have so much money, and if you don't have your health, it's not worth it. Or if you don't, if you're not happy, I mean, you can have so much money and you're still depressed and not happy. At the end of the day, it's how we look at life, and I'm blessed, and there's a reason I'm still here.
Yeah. And I totally believe that. I mean, I think health is wealth. You've been through that. You've been through where your health is not good, and there's probably not much other things that are as important as getting better whenever you are sick, correct?
Yes. And you don't understand that when you haven't gone through something like this, whether it's an accident or something else. You don't understand that completely. You do, but you don't really how important, because it was always getting the next bigger thing, you know, and we were living in our dream house, you know, and then this happens, you know.
Right.
What's the point? What's the point, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really important to be happy inside yourself and realize that happiness comes from within.
Yeah, I love that.
The more we get, the more we want. It's a never-ending thing. So this is something that I also learned.
Yeah, I love that. So I like to finish up the show by going through some quotes. I love quotes. I write them down on a bunch of Post-it notes, and I just like to get the guest's take on some of the quotes that I've written down or come up with. But one of the quotes is, live your dreams and not your memories.
Say that again, sorry.
Live your dreams and not your memories.
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
That means live in the moment as well as think about the future, you know, what you want to achieve. That's what that means to me. Don't live in your past.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, you can live in your memories. I mean, there's always good memories, but you don't want to live in your past memories, like the ones that are painful and hurt.
So one of the things with people who have gone through these hard times, do you feel like you're a better person because of it?
I think so. Well, I hope so. You know, I have written a book. I've written 2 books. And
give us the title of those books, please.
Sorry?
Give us the title of those books.
Oh, yes. Well, this is the first one. Stronger, You Can Overcome and Bounce Back from Adversity. So I wrote that after the first cancer, and I was going through my divorce as well, and my separation after my we were together for 28 years. And that's a guide to heal from within, you know, and all healing starts from within. And it's 7 steps that we can, how to get through crisis and be able to overcome it and also be able to thrive. And it talks about things like forgiveness and gratitude and visualization and mindfulness and all things like that. And
Right. So here's another quote. Tell me what you think about this one. Our life is not our circumstances. It is what we do in those circumstances.
Exactly. And that's what I believe 100%. It's not what happens to us. It's how we get through it and who we become. Yeah. That's 100% for how I feel as well.
Love that. Okay. One last one. Yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or lose.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Give me elaborate.
I was going to say it's about that victim thing as well, the mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have an amazing story, and I know you're out there sharing your story and trying to help other people, and that's what this podcast is all about, is letting people know that there are some people out there who have made it through some very tough circumstances, and they have not fallen into becoming a victim of those circumstances, but a product of their choices. And I really appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you sharing your story, and I wish you all the luck. And I'd like to thank all of our listeners for tuning in and for their continued support. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, I Got Smarter, Goals Elevated, available on the App Store and Android and Apple. So thanks again, and best wishes to you, Roula. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.